Hey guys, this is an initial review, impressions of this Native 5 lightweight in MAXAMET. I've been carrying and using this knife for a little while and I have some initial thoughts already that I want to get out there. My review of this knife is not complete, but I have some stuff I want to say. For more information on the following segment, refer to my Native 5 G10 15V review. Okay, so to follow up with this FRN clicky issue. Again, the G10 model doesn't do it. Seems fine. So I'm not very mechanically inclined, so I've enlisted the help of my friend who is more mechanically inclined than I am, and we're going to talk about this issue.
All right, so the problem that I suspect is what is causing the issue is that the G10 doesn't flex nearly as much as the FRN does. And the blade can't move side to side as much as it can in the FRN versions. And what is happening is, this one doesn't do it as bad. What is happening is that as the little nub here goes past the handle scale, it's creating vibration through the handle, but also is making that noise as you go to deploy it. So it doesn't present itself as an issue with the G10 version because the G10 doesn't flex, unlike FRN. And to further solidify this hypothesis, it doesn't happen when you just pull the blade straight out. On none of these, you can actually hear it grinding a little bit, but it doesn't do it on any of them if you just pull the blade straight out. But if you go to deploy it, this one's really bad. And I suspect what's just happening is this little nub right there is just rubbing on the inside of the handle right here. So just to clarify that there's no problems with the tang of the blades, we have it out here. We disassembled the knife. As we can, so the lock bar when it's closed will be riding down here on this part of the blade and up and around. And as we look at the tang of the blade here, this part right here, this little notch doesn't matter because the lock bar doesn't actually touch that, but on the whole travel, it's nice and smooth. I don't know if it's focusing or not, but it's nice and smooth the whole way around. So it's nothing to do with the lock bar actually rubbing on the tang itself.
Congratulations to Knife Design Nerds. He also figured this out as described in the comments of the Native 5 G10. So the first information I want to put out to you guys is that I did my regular rope and soda box cardboard edge retention test with this knife. This consists of me cutting 1/4 inch rope and this soda box cardboard in cycles, usually of 50 with the knife like this. So I'll cut 50 times on the rope and 50 times on the cardboard. That makes one cycle. This test was performed about a year ago. I have been doing this test for a long time, and this knife was tested months ago, way before I started doing a YouTube channel, so I don't have any footage of it, but these are the results. So the factory edge of this knife cut 400 times through 1/4 inch rope and soda box cardboard. At this time in my testing, this result was very, very good. I'd only had better results probably 5 times, and I tested many knives and many different steels. So this put MAXAMET on this knife in about the 95th percentile in my testing. These results I'm reporting to you are comparing this factory edge result with other knives and steels factory edges. Just to clarify, only my initial edge retention test was performed about a year ago. After that, I just put this knife away and have just been waiting to test it until now. Now let's talk about how this knife and steel has performed for me in the last couple weeks. At this point in my testing, I had used the knife quite a bit, but not for anything too interesting. Just some Amazon boxes, some Amazon envelopes, a few things here and there, nothing too substantial. However, I noted that the edge seemed slightly duller than I would have thought. When I started the testing, this knife was very sharp, able to shave my arm hair cleanly. It was no longer doing that. It was kind of in between shaving and scraping. So I stropped the knife on this basswood loaded with stroppy stuff, 0.25 micron. It only took a few passes, and this resulted in an edge that was not quite as sharp as the edge was initially, but very close, so I was satisfied with that. I then resumed my testing, cutting random things as the situations presented themselves. For the following takes you are about to see, the Native 5 and MAXAMET only made the cuts on this big cardboard, cutting off these tassels. Those little tassel cuts were not made by this knife. I did not use this knife to cut all these tassels. I used some Delicas. I'm doing a Delica steel comparison, so that's from that. I'm just going to cut these tassels off because I want to get down to the middle part of that, so I'm going to use the Native 5. Again, I want to be clear, if you guys missed it, this knife did not cut all these tassels. Different knives did that. I'm just using this to cut these off. So this Native 5 and MAXAMET cut those tassel flaps off those large boxes, top and bottom, on 3 boxes. This equaled approximately 41.5 feet of cardboard cut just from those large boxes. So that's kind of where I'm at now with this testing. At this point, the knife doesn't feel very dangerous to me this way. It doesn't feel very toothy, maybe very slightly toothy. It does grab my finger pads a little bit this way, quite a bit actually. But the knife, again, not really scraping arm hair. So I'd give this maybe a 4 out of 5. That may be okay. But I feel like this knife is a little bit duller than it should be after cutting that cardboard. Now, 41.5 feet of cardboard is not nothing. That's a lot. But just for frame of reference, the Native 5 G10 with 15V steel on its touched up factory edge cut 193 feet of cardboard, and had already cut half a fruit box, which was so difficult for me to cut, I almost couldn't do it. So I feel like this knife is just not quite holding up as well as I would think. Again, this is basically the factory edge. Did my rope and cardboard edge retention test off the factory edge a year ago, then touched it up just basically with a tiny ceramic and stropping, got the edge really back to really shaving sharp. And that's where it's been since I've been doing this testing. This is no different than what I usually do in my testing. I will frequently do an edge retention test on the factory edge, then touch it up after that, and carry the knife and use it on whatever edge is left from the factory at that point, making notes along the way if I have to touch up the edge or resharpen the knife as it goes. So this is what the edge looks like on this catalog paper. Just try to clean that up. So some of the cuts are pretty smooth. Some of them are a little bumpy and rough. This is what it looks like on the notebook paper I usually use. I frequently cut this kind of paper. It's quite rough on that. So this knife is duller than I think it should be. So I did get a best check on this knife. I never did one before on this knife, so this is the first time it's gotten a best check. I just want to see where it's at right now so we have comparison moving forward. .211. So the reason I'm making this video now is because, one, I wanted to put out that information about the clickiness. I'm trying not to overly exaggerate it, which to me is almost not even noticeable really now that I'm kind of used to it, but it is a thing. I wanted to put that information out because there was some interest in it when I brought it up in my other Native G10 review. But I want to continue testing this knife, and I think this testing is going to take a while. I suspect that my experience with MAXAMET is that it loses its front end sharpness pretty quickly. I believe that's what I'm finding at this point, but I want to do more testing before I say that as my hard and fast opinion with limited information, but I think that's where I'm at for now. I haven't tried to actually resharpen this thing. At this point, I was kind of torn about whether I was going to push this further into testing basically a knife that's duller than what I would be comfortable carrying. But I think that's where MAXAMET's going to probably start to perform well, is deep into the working edge where knives are typically duller than what I like to carry. I don't know. That's where I'm at. So more testing is coming, but it's going to take a while. For now, this knife is a question mark for me. I don't have any actual complaint. I haven't had an actual problem. I just suspect that the front end sharpness doesn't last as long as I would like, and to me that's relevant. I like my knives to be very sharp, and I would rather they hold on to that front end sharpness, which I will say is shaving arm hair. That's where I like my knives to be. When they stop shaving arm hair, if they can hold an edge, if they stop scraping my arm hair and they can hold that edge for a really long time, that doesn't interest me very much. Maybe it interests you guys, but we'll see where this goes. I will keep you guys posted. If you have any opinions about this so far, let me know. As always, thanks for watching.